What if the way you feel about a menu, a movie poster, or a political slogan has less to do with the words and more to do with their shape? Beat. Welcome to the invisible yet irresistible world of fonts, the secret life of letters. Close your eyes and picture the letter A. Beat. Did you see a loop with a delicate ear, like in Garamond, or a single-story blob, like in Helvetica? Beat. Simon Garfield begins Just My Type by revealing that every letter form we meet is the product of centuries of struggle between craft and technology, beauty and utility. Beat. He introduces us to Johannes Gutenberg, whose black letter type mirrored medieval manuscripts, and to Claude Garamond, whose Roman faces whispered of Renaissance grace. Beat. Garfield reminds us that typography is more than design. It is a coded language of emphasis, intention. A serif, he argues, is a handshake from history, urging the eye to glide from stroke to stroke. A sans serif, meanwhile, is a clean-shaven rebel, promising modernity. Beat. The author guides us through the jargon of X-height, kerning, and leading, showing how tiny tweaks can alter meaning. Imagine the word love set in Bodoni, vertical stress, razor-thin serifs, instant drama. Now set it in Comic Sans. The sentiment shifts from operatic confession to playground doodle. Beat. Garfield peppers anecdotes, like the British railway employee who mistook Gill sounds for a new national anthem, with dry humour, demonstrating that fonts quietly steer public perception. Beat. By section's end, we grasp the book's central proposition. Type is not a neutral vessel, but a character with moods, memories, and motives. Beat. Letters can flirt, scold, or reassure, and once you notice their personalities, you cannot unsee them. The mundane sign on a restroom door becomes a secret conversation between designer and reader, a dialogue as intimate as handwriting. Beat. Garfield urges us to watch every curve and counter, because in those spaces lives the hidden biography of language. Fonts that shaped history. Garfield next offers a whirlwind tour of the typefaces that changed everything: classics, curiosities, and outright catastrophes. Beat. We meet Baskerville, the 18th century perfectionist who pursued purity of form so obsessively that critics accused his crisp, high-contrast letters of harming eyesight. His edition of Milton's Paradise Lost was deemed un-English, too refined, too French. Yet his type later enchanted America's founding fathers. Beat. Jump to the Industrial Revolution, when wood-type posters screamed across brick walls with chunky Egyptians and fat faces. The Victorian era's visual cacophony mirrors its clamorous streets. Garfield calls it a typographic emphasis, boomtown. Beat. Then comes Futura, Paul Renner's geometric hymn to the machine age, whose perfectly round O and sharp triangles made it the font of rockets and revolution. Neil Armstrong left Futura footprints on the moon, at least on NASA's mission patches. Beat. Garfield also canvasses disasters. The most infamous is Comic Sans, born in 1995 to ease Microsoft Bob's talking dog, but soon unleashed on every memo and memorial. Beat. Critics brand it the typographic equivalent of karaoke. Fun in private, cringeworthy in public. Yet Garfield defends its sincerity, noting occasions, children's hospitals, dyslexia tools, where Comic Sans' informal strokes genuinely comfort. Beat. Equally divisive is Helvetica, the Swiss masterpiece that flooded corporate logos from American Airlines to American apparel. Its neutrality became a blank screen onto which brands projected authority. But, Garfield argues, when everything looks the same, nothing stands out. Beat. Thus sprung the cycle of backlash and revival, proving that typefaces like pop songs ride waves of cultural taste. Beat. By touring these triumphs and train wrecks, Garfield teaches us that fonts are historical actors. They persuade voters, sell soap, and proclaim revolutions long after the slogans fade. Beat. Spot a stencil typeface, and you sniff military grit. Spy Cooper Black, and you taste 1970s album art. Beat. History lives not only in words, but in how words are worn. Psychology of typography. Having explored the past, Garfield dives into the mind. Why does one typeface make us trust a bank, while another tempts us to buy cupcakes? Beat. Cognitive scientists have shown that readers subconsciously assign personalities to type, a phenomenon Garfield calls the font frisson. Beat. Take the menu experiment. Identical dishes described in the elegant script of Bickham taste $3 pricier and 15% more delicious than when printed in utilitarian Arial. Beat. The brain conflates difficulty of reading with effort of preparation. Fancy fonts signal handcrafted cuisine. Beat. Similarly, voters perceive campaign slogans in Optima, a hybrid sans serif with flared strokes, as optimistic yet stable, a combination that helped Obama in 2008. Beat. Garfield highlights research on moral judgment. When participants read the same ethical dilemma in Times New Roman versus Comic Sans, they judged transgressions harsher in the formal type, proving typography can shape empathy. Beat. Even medical instructions printed in a friendly rounded font boost patient adherence by up to 14%. In other words, a curve can save a life. Beat. Yet the psychology cuts both ways. Designers exploit brand congruity, matching type to product persona. Think rugged slab serifs on denim labels, ethereal Dido on perfume boxes. But misalignment breeds distrust. Imagine a death metal band logo in papyrus. Authenticity evaporates. Beat. Garfield ultimately argues for typographic mindfulness. When we present ideas, we unwittingly dress our thoughts in emotional attire. Recognizing this power equips us to communicate ethically, avoiding manipulative prettiness or accidental sabotage. Beat. By the section's end, listeners realize that choosing a font is akin to selecting tone of voice. It can whisper secrets or shout commands, potentially shifting public behavior more than the words themselves. The digital revolution and beyond. In the final major movement, Garfield chronicles the leap from hot metal to pixels, a transition that democratized design yet birthed new dilemmas. Beat. The 1984 Apple Macintosh arrived with MacWrite and the bitmap Geneva font, letting ordinary users wield typographic tools once reserved for typesetters in ink-stained aprons. Beat. Desktop publishing exploded. Suddenly, newsletters, church bulletins, and teenage zines mixed marker felt with copperplate, like kids raiding a candy store. Beat. The web amplified both creativity and chaos. Early HTML defaulted to Times New Roman, but as CSS matured, designers gained license to embed typefaces, spawning the font face renaissance. Beat. Google Fonts now offers hundreds of free faces. Open Sans, Lato, Montserrat, served billions of times a day. Beat. Garfield warns that infinite choice can paralyze. He quotes a designer who spends longer selecting fonts than writing copy. Beat. Accessibility becomes paramount in the screen era. Retina displays sharpen vertices, but small mobile screens demand robust legibility. Beat. Fonts like Roboto and SF Pro evolve with optical sizes, adapting thickness and aperture to context. Garfield applauds the rise of variable fonts, single files that morph weight, width, and slant smoothly, reducing load times and carbon footprints. Beat. Yet digital abundance also revives old ethical debates. Deepfake memes rely on mimicking corporate type. Extremist groups co-opt wholesome fonts to launder ideology. Garfield argues that designers must wield their newfound power responsibly, cultivating visual literacy in the public. Beat. He ends the section with a speculative gaze. Augmented reality overlays, voice-controlled interfaces displaying dynamic type, and neuroscientific feedback loops that adjust kerning to heartbeat rhythms. Beat. Typography, he suggests, will remain a living organism, evolving with technology yet anchored by our unchanging desire to see thought made visible. The challenge is to keep the conversation between eye and mind honest, elegant, and humane. Beat. In this brave new typographic world, awareness is our compass.